Hello and welcome to Lansing Pulse. I'm Ken Miller. Today I'm joined, as always, by City Administrator Tim Vandall. Tim, we're a little more than a month into 2022, and that much closer to warmer weather, hopefully, at the start of the building season. So let's start with the main project. We're going to be talking about this probably from here on out for the next year or so, maybe less. Let's hope it's less. But talk about the intersection improvements that are coming up at K7 in Eisenhower.
Yeah, well, that's a project that we're really excited about. That project is going to add a dedicated southbound right turn lane, so that grassy area right in front of Quick Trip, that's going to be a dedicated right-hand turn lane to get onto Eisenhower. So right now, when a lot of people are driving south on K7, if the person in front of you is turning right, you've got to slow down. And then when you slow down, everyone behind you slows down and whatever. So that's going to be a dedicated right-hand turn lane there, which is going to improve the flow of traffic. Northbound, there's going to be dual left turn lanes. So a lot of times I think when people are in that area around 5:15 p.m., you will see that northbound left turn lane just completely stacked up.
Right.
And this will add a dedicated second left turn lane to get onto Eisenhower. So it's really going to improve that intersection. It's going to make it safer. It's going to improve the flow of traffic. But you touched on this, it's going to be a little bit inconvenient.
Right.
So we need to remind people as much as we can, avoid that intersection if at all possible. If you need to go to Quick Trip to pump gas, do it during non-peak hours. If you need to go to TSC, please do it in non-peak hours. And please utilize detours if you're able to.
Right. Well, and I think it's kind of interesting because it's the exact reverse of when we were redoing DeSoto. We were telling people, go over to K7 Main Street. Now it's going to be like, if you can avoid that part of K7, use DeSoto. I mean, it's through, and it's been redone, so it can handle more traffic now.
You know, and regarding the timeline of this project, so I believe the bid opening is tentatively scheduled for March 15th. So the council would approve those bids, that first meeting in April. And then I think we're hoping for substantial completion by early December of this year. So it's going to be a congested intersection for several months. But you know, one of the things that I'm really proud about with this project, it's an 80% Kansas Department of Transportation grant. So the state is partnering with us, and then the remainder of the costs we're partnering with the city of Leavenworth on. We're working hand in hand with our neighbor to the north. So I'm really proud of that aspect of this project. Really proud of Public Works Director Mike Spickelmeyer for working hard to get that KDOT grant, and really just a team effort on this one. So I'm really proud of this project. Like we'd mentioned, there'll be a few headaches this summer, I'm sure, but when it's done, it's just going to be a huge improvement.
Right, and check social media, the website, all of the usual sources for information, because we will be providing updates, especially when it's something that's going to affect the traffic flow. Okay, how about an update on potential residential development? I'm sure people who drive around Lansing notice that there have been for sale signs, there have been sold signs on for sale signs when it comes to some land sales that really most of them took place last year. Could those prove fruitful for what we're going to look at this year?
We're really hoping so. So like you had mentioned, there's a few really prominent properties in Lansing that are under contract right now. And we're incredibly excited about that. And I think it will bear fruit for Lansing. But the one caveat that I will add, that I'll throw out there, you know, a lot of these residential projects take months and months and months. Before anyone can build any houses, they need to go through the platting process. They need to be sure the land use plan and zoning is correct. And then once that's done, they need to do earthwork. They need to put in water lines. They need to put in sewer lines. They need to put in the streets. So before we'll see any foundations or anything being built, there's a lot of legwork that needs to go into it. So it's possible we might not see those new houses until maybe early 2023, hopefully. But maybe some will be in 2022. But it's such a long process in order to see those homes sprout up. But again, though, a lot of those properties that are under contract, they're large parcels. I mean, some of them are parcels that could accommodate hundreds of homes, which would be huge for Lansing. So yeah, you are right. There's some great land sales that are coming down the pipe, but we do have to be patient, and hopefully we'll see some fruit from that in the next several months.
Well, and the market is incredibly hot right now, and not just in Leavenworth County, but all over the country for the most part. yeah, the sooner those can get online, the better, I think, for profit.
You know, you bring up a really good point too. You know, there is this massive housing shortage in Lansing right now, and it seems like if there's a house that's under a certain level of price, it seems like it gets snapped up pretty quick.
Right.
But I think there's a housing shortage in, you know, every city in the KC Metro.
Right.
It is becoming a huge problem, not just in Lansing, but metro-wide and in some areas nationwide. So it's something that, you know, we're working on. I know the council's working on some incentives to maybe help out residential developers a little bit so we can see more houses being built. But yeah, it's a major issue everywhere, absolutely.
Right. All right, commercially, Lansing had a pretty good year last year in 2021 in terms of new business development. You know, you and I have gone to Harbor Freight a couple of times since they opened up. And again, you got a crystal ball here, but is the momentum going to carry over to 2022? You're obviously on the front lines from a city perspective when we're trying to attract businesses. What's your gut feeling?
You know, so a couple things. We're expecting to see Family Eye Care break ground in the next 3 or 4 weeks, and that's going to be a great welcome addition to the town center area. But then beyond that, you know, similar to the previous question, there are commercial properties in Lansing that are under contract right now, but people are in their due diligence phase. They're doing soil samples, they're doing site plans, they're running the numbers to ensure that their business would be profitable if they came here. But so I'm excited that so many of these properties are under contract, but similarly, it will take them some time to build their new buildings. But hopefully, you know, if we're looking back in December of 2022, hopefully, even beyond Family Eye Care, hopefully there'll be 2 or 3 other commercial buildings that are in the process of being built or maybe even completed. You know, one thing that I'll add though, you know, I think with economic development stuff, we all get so excited about new businesses, you know, the Harbor Freight's, Quick Trips of the world, and rightfully so. But another huge part of economic development is supporting those businesses that you already have in your town, and that's one of those things too where we constantly need to remind folks in Lansing, buy local if you can. And if you absolutely can't purchase something in Lansing, you know, if you're at least purchasing it in Leavenworth County, that money also stays somewhat local too. So if you can, support those Lansing businesses, support Lansing Lumber, support Main Street Chrysler Dodge Jeep Ram. There's so many great businesses in Lansing and great community-minded people that operate those businesses. So yeah, even outside of those new businesses, check out those local businesses.
Well, and I'm gonna go. You're going kind of after the fact. Let me go before the fact. And I think we talk about this a little bit, but I think the city, shameless plug here, but I think the city deserves some additional credit for the infrastructure work we've been doing for the last 5-10 years. That it's kind of making it possible for people to take a look at us and say they're ready to go. If the numbers are correct, then we go, as opposed to, oh, they don't have this in place, they don't have that in place.
Yeah, no, that's a really good point. And one really good example of that, one of the, probably an unsung hero in Lansing is Matt Schmitz, and a really cool example of something that he did that maybe gets overlooked a little bit. That property where Harbor Freight is, there was this huge state easement on that property. And that deterred a lot of people from purchasing that land. And so one of the things that Matt worked on when he first came on board was trying to ensure that that state easement or state right-of-way, whatever it was, could be a part of that larger parcel. And so right now that area, I think it's like Harbor Freight's parking lot. So they couldn't put the building on top of it, but it made that parcel, you know, 0.3, 0.4 acres bigger, big enough where Harbor Freight could build there. And so it's things like that sometimes, making the parcel 0.4 acres bigger, making it so you have a bigger parking lot that sometimes attracts these people. And again, you know, maybe that's not the sexy thing in the council meeting that people are catching, but that's something behind the scenes that Matt did that really cleared the way for Harbor Freight to come to Lansing.
And, you know, we talk about physical infrastructure, whether it's sewer, whether it's roads. You're kind of talking about political infrastructure. You had to work it out with KDOT to make that piece of land more attractive.
Exactly.
Okay, so speaking of the state, we're having a little more cash on hand than expected. I think if you listen to Governor Kelly and her State of the State address a couple weeks ago, you would hear the ideas how we're going to spend this money. From Lansing's perspective, how do you hope to see the state fulfill some promises, I guess not only to Lansing, but localities in general in terms of funding?
One of the things that we're incredibly excited about, it seems like KDOT, the coffers are there, kind of like they weren't maybe 10 years ago. So we're really optimistic about some KDOT grant opportunities. And one thing that I'll say too, Lansing, we suffer a little bit from a lack of connectivity to the rest of the metro. It's challenging because from K7, it takes a while to get to the rest of the metro. And then from K5, it's kind of a windy road.
Right.
So we suffer a little bit from lack of connectivity. So we're hoping that some of this new KDOT funding that's coming down the pipe, hopefully, whether that's improvements to K5 or another major connector, hopefully that can improve Lansing's access to the rest of the metro. So that's something really big that we're hoping for in the next several years. Another thing that's kind of interesting that we're working hand in hand with the Kansas Department of Transportation on is this Leavenworth County Transportation Plan. And so that's a plan that all of the cities and Leavenworth County and KDOT are working together on to kind of outline some big transportation priorities for the area as a whole. And the background behind this is, I think when Leavenworth and Lansing and Basser and Tongi are all competing against each other, maybe we drown each other out a little bit, and it's already challenging enough for Leavenworth County to compete with Johnson and Wyandotte counties. So I think the thought process here is, if we can come up with a plan that states a united front, that states this project is a priority, this project is a priority, we think that will improve our chances for funding with KDOT, and KDOT is taking part in this process as well. So we're really excited about that. Hopefully that's something that can bear fruit because, like we had said, it's challenging competing with the Johnson counties of the world, and like it or not, that's what we have to do.
Well, and regardless of which party is in power in Topeka, KDOT has always said a regional approach when you're soliciting for projects is a major step towards getting funding for those projects. And you're right. I think I can say this in the 17 years I've been working here. Sometimes we shoot each other in the foot because we don't agree with what our neighbor wants to do.
Yeah, absolutely. Another grant project that we just found out about a few days ago, this BASE grant, Building a Stronger Economy. This grant just got rolled out to cities and counties and private developers in the last week or so. And the deadline is February 28th. So it is a brand new grant, and I think the goal of this is to kickstart some economic development throughout the state of Kansas. So it's kind of interesting, this week I think me and Matt Schmitz's email inbox was getting filled up with, hey, did you hear about this grant opportunity? Hey, did you hear about this? Hey, did you hear about this? But again, it's such a brand new grant that all of these entities wanted to be sure that we were aware of it. And since then, though, we're already talking to Mayor McNeil, as well as some private property owners in Lansing, and saying, hey, what can we do with this BASE grant that can help out your business or kickstart more economic growth? So that's something that we're excited about. That's a brand new state program. But like I said, even though it's brand new, there's not a super long deadline. The deadline is February 28th. So that's something that we'll be working on this month.
Yeah, okay. Lastly, the city is in the process of hiring a part-time event planner. And I guess looking forward, once that happens and that person is on the ground and running, is it an indication that we're trying, and when I say we, I mean the city of Lansing, we're trying to get back to some semblance of normal when it comes to city-sponsored public events? As you well know, we've still had most of our events, but they've kind of been, if not scaled back, done differently. What is this an indication of?
Yeah, hopefully that's an indication that we're going to restart and get back to normal. This person will certainly have a lot of different projects that they can work on. We were able to do our fireworks / Lansing Days event last year, so that was very exciting. But some of our indoor consolidated events like Salads and Solutions or the Business Appreciation Lunch or the Volunteer
Spooky
Recognition Dinner, Spooky Center. Some of our indoor events we've had to change or postpone. So hopefully as time goes on, we'll get back to that sense of normalcy. And that this person, whoever we hire, is going to be a big part of that. One thing that I will say though, that's a big, curveball. so many of our events take place out at Bernard Park. And Bernard Park is going to be under construction this year.
Right.
So that's one of those things too. We're having a lot of discussions internally with our Parks and Rec department, with the Community and Economic Development Director, trying to figure out how these events later this year are going to look. Events like the fishing derby,
Right.
barbecue contest, fireworks. I mean, it could be challenging doing them in an area where there's construction nearby. So that's something that we're talking about right now, how those events are going to look. And but even with that curveball of all the construction out at Bernard Park, I'm still incredibly excited about all of these events. I know they're going to work out really well, and I know we have some really good candidates for that part-time event planner position. So yeah, I think 2022, it's going to be a great year for a lot of those family events.
All right, I've been speaking with Lansing City Administrator Tim Vandall. For Lansing Pulse, I'm Ken Miller.